The package was small, plain, no return address. It sat on his doorstep that morning, nestled between a stack of grocery store circulars and a soggy newspaper. The old man, known around town only as Ray, picked it up with a hesitant grip, his fingers tracing the rough cardboard edges. He hadn't ordered anything. No one sent him things. Back inside, he shut the door and locked it, a habit though no one ever visited. He peeled back the tape, and the box yawned open with a hollow rustle. A VHS tape, black, unmarked, the plastic casing slightly scuffed with age. He turned it over in his hands, expecting a label, a title, something, but there was nothing. Just a tape, rewound to the start, waiting. Ray's TV was an old thing, bulky and dust-coated, but the VCR still worked. He slid the tape in, the familiar whir and click filling the silent room. The screen flickered, static rippling in waves before settling into an image. At first, it was nothing, just an empty street, the camera angle shaky, as though held by an unsteady hand. The street looked familiar. The camera panned, revealing a man walking along the sidewalk. His stride was slow, unaware. Ray leaned forward. Then it happened. A blur of motion, a figure emerging from the darkness behind the man. Fast, unnatural. The man on the screen didn't even get the chance to turn before something struck him. Hard. The sound was muffled, but Ray saw the way his body jerked, the way his legs crumpled beneath him. The figure loomed, though its face remained hidden in the grainy distortion of the tape. A shadow more than a person. Ray felt something cold crawl up his spine. The tape ended abruptly, static rushing back in like a tide. The VCR clicked and the screen went black. He sat there staring at the screen. Was this some kind of prank? Some old horror short? But then a sickly feeling settled in his gut. He knew that street. It was only a few blocks away. Ray swallowed hard, his throat dry. He hadn't been outside much lately, but he knew that street well enough. The man in the video, was he someone Ray had seen before? He couldn't tell. The footage was too grainy, the flickering static obscuring the finer details. But something about it felt real. He ejected the tape, gripping it tightly in his trembling hands. For a long moment, he just sat there, staring at it. Then, against his better judgment, he reached for his coat. Outside, the air was cold and damp, the kind that seeped into your bones. The street from the video wasn't far, just a short walk past the abandoned gas station and the flickering street lamp that had been broken for years. As he turned the corner, his breath caught in his throat. Police tape. A small crowd had gathered near the alleyway. The flashing red and blue of a squad car cast eerie, shifting shadows against the cracked pavement. Officers moved in and out of the taped-off area, their faces grim. Ray edged closer, trying to catch a glimpse beyond the gathered bodies. His stomach churned as he saw it, the same spot from the tape. There had been a murder here. His head swam, a strange weight pressing down on him. Number. No, it's a coincidence. It has to be. He turned on his heel and walked away, faster than before, his heart hammering. But even as he left the scene behind, the image from the tape played over and over in his mind. The way the man had fallen, the shadow that had emerged from nowhere. That could have been anyone. Could have been him. Back home, he locked the door and turned all the lights on. The tape still sat by the TV, a black, unassuming rectangle. He should throw it away. Burn it. Instead, his fingers hovered over the VCR. His breath came in short, uneven bursts. He needed to know. He needed to see what happened next. His hand moved on its own, sliding the tape back in. The static returned and the screen flickered. A new scene, a different street, a different person. And then, just like before, the shadow came. Only this time, the kill was worse. Blood splattered against the camera lens, distorting the image into something surreal, something grotesque. The tape crackled, the screen shaking violently. Ray's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. It wasn't just showing deaths, it was escalating. And then, just before the tape cut out, he saw something he wished he hadn't. The camera, always shaking, always unfocused, suddenly steadied. The lens panned, slowly, deliberately. It turned to face him, his own reflection in the TV screen, staring back. And behind him, in the distorted static, Something moved. Ray stood frozen, his entire body locked in fear. The knocking continued. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. He turned back to the TV. The footage on the screen hadn't changed. His apartment door was still there, the camera shaking slightly, the image warped by static. It was showing him this exact moment. His breath came in short, sharp gasps. If he opened the door, would the tape change? Would he be next? Knock, knock, knock. The sound wasn't coming from the door anymore. Ray's breath hitched. His eyes snapped to the TV. The knocking was coming from inside the screen, from inside his own apartment. Something moved in the reflection on the TV, just behind him. A shape, tall and dark, standing in the center of the room. Ray spun around. Nothing. But the air was wrong, heavy, charged, like something unseen was waiting, pressing in from all sides. He turned back to the screen. The figure was still there. It had shifted closer. Knock. This time the sound came from everywhere. The walls, the TV, the inside of his head. Knock. His vision swam. His body felt sluggish, like something had reached inside him and taken hold of his bones. Knock. The TV flickered violently. The screen warped and twisted. The image of his door stretching, pulling, opening, and then a hand reached through the static. Not from his door, from the TV. The fingers were long, unnatural, twitching violently as they gripped the edge of the screen like it was a doorway. Ray stumbled back, his scream caught in his throat. The arm pulled itself free, followed by a twisted, impossible body. It moved wrong, bending at angles that bones weren't meant to. It had no face, only a warped, static void, shifting like a broken signal. Ray ran. He lunged for the tape, yanking it from the VCR. The screen cut to static, but the creature was still there, standing, waiting, its featureless head tilted slightly. The tape. He had to destroy the tape. His hands trembled as he raised it above his head, ready to smash it against the floor. But then, the TV screen changed. A new scene flickered to life. A new victim. A man, disheveled, old, face pale with fear. Ray's own face. The tape was already playing, already recording. The screen shook violently, the image distorting, twisting. And then, the creature moved. The next morning, Ray's apartment was silent. The TV screen flickered with static, the faint hum of the VCR, the only sound in the room. The tape sat on the coffee table, ejected but intact. Ray was gone. No blood, no struggle, just absence. A week later, a thrift store worker found a plain VHS tape in a donation box. No label, no markings. Curious, he took it home, slid it into his VCR. The screen flickered, static at first, then a dimly lit apartment, a man sitting in a chair, pale, terrified. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. The man in the video was Ray. The worker leaned in, confused. On the screen, Ray suddenly snapped his head up, looking directly at him. The static warped. The screen shook violently. Then, knock, knock, knock.